without a lot of the flashy stuff to complete the sushi roll. So I'm just going to get right to it, and we'll learn as we go. We have the cube here. At any point you need to reset yourself, go to File, New, General, and then it will ask you to save whatever it is that you did. If you want to save it, I don't think you do, just hit No Save, and it will reset you to this cube. All right, when I middle push my mouse, I can spin this thing around. And what we're going to first do with this is we're going to enter edit mode by hitting Tab. And then now I'm going to right click and subdivide this. And I've subdivided it, but I want to do it more, so I'll go down to this little guy at the bottom window here, and then I'll add this to 3. Okay, and so now I have 1, 2, 3 little 4 faces in the middle. By clicking this right here, I can now actually select the faces. If I hold shift click, I can select all 4 of those faces. I'm going to extrude this by hitting E and pushing that down a little bit. There's no rhyme or reason how far you want to go. I'm going to go about that far, and then I'm going to select these 3 here, and then I'm going to hit E again and extrude down a little bit further. So when I spin this around, we have this layer, and then this layer. You can do it as much as you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Looking at the final render of this, if I can pull this up real fast, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Here it is. Okay, so you can see I have a few layers going on inside here. In fact, an extra one, if you want to try and put that extra one inside there. Getting back to our sushi roll here. What we're going to do next is put the outside edge. So this is going to be the rice, and then that's the inside. We need to do the seaweed wrap on the outside edge. In order to do that, I'm going to select the outside edge. And so I could do this. It's going to take a long time to do that all the way around. So here's the trick. If I hold Alt or Option on the keyboard, and I click on this vertical line, it'll loop around and make a loop selection. And so if I do that again, it will loop there. So if I hold Shift and Alt or Option at the same time, I can make a selection, make a selection, make a selection, and now I have it all the way around. I'm now going to hit Alt-E or Option-E, and I'm going to go to Extrude Faces Along Normals. And then I'm going to move my cursor until it goes this direction. And if you hit S, then it will make it perfectly square. And you have a choice to make it that way or not. I'm going to make it perfectly square and hit S. So my sushi roll seaweed's going to be about that thick. And voila, that's the form of the sushi. Let's assign this a color. I think it's easiest if we hit tab into object mode, and let's make sure this is selected, and let's make everything the color of rice. And so if we put our cursor on the materials tab, if you hold your cursor over it, the materials property window will open up. And right here I have a material by default, and I'm going to change the color to a little bit more of this yellowish color just to kind of give it some rice and a rice color, and don't need to do that. And then to see that material preview, we'll go to this one right here, the viewport shading, and then now we can actually see that color. So I'll just show you if we wanted to make it green, which we don't. That's how you would do it. All right, now with this selected, let's tab back by hitting tab. Let's tab back into edit mode. And since I already have this outside selected, let's go ahead and make the green seaweed outside. So all I need to do is select this inside area here. So if I hold Shift and Alt, I can select that top part, and then I come underneath here and I'll select that and get that. All right? And so now the seaweed wrap is selected. Let's make the color for it. First we need to make the container for it, like the paint bucket. So the way that we do it inside edit mode is we hit this, and here's our little container. We'll go New, and let's name this Seaweed Green. And then we want to tell Blender to assign it. Yes, and that means now it's going to assign it these faces to this container. And now let's make this container a color. And we can bring it over into the green and maybe darken it a little bit. All right, and then when you click off here, you can actually see that. So you can be the judge of what color you think the seaweed should actually be. Make it less blue. Okay. And the same with the inside. So we already did the rice. So now let's make this and this and this. Let's go to the bottom. Oop, we don't need to do that. Don't worry about it. And let's make a new container. Let's go to new. Let's make this salmon, S-A-L-M-O-N. And I just double click the name. And then I'll hit assign. And then I'll come over here and I'll make this a salmon color. All right. And so what I could do is select that, and then I could come over here and grab that salmon and hit assign, and that will now, I can assign it that color there. I don't want to do that. I'm just showing you once you have these colors made, you can start assigning them to anything. This right here, I'm going to make it green. It has some other surfaces, like this surface right here, so I'm going to hold shift and select it, and then shift there. So I've got that one on the right, and then one on the top. I'm going to make this a new container. Let's hit new, and then let's call this green, and let's assign it. And this one is going to be kind of like maybe an onion, green onion, or avocado. I don't know. It's a different color green though. How about that? Okay, a little bit obnoxious, but oh well. Okay, so we have our rice, we have our seaweed wrap, and if you wanted to extrude the rice down a little bit, you could, or we could take the top of the seaweed, we could shift, alt, and click, and it will go all the way around. And I think I'm going to extrude this up just a little bit. Boom, so it has a little bit of an edge, just like that. And that means that I maybe need to come in here and select this all the way around. And so now I can come over and grab the seaweed green and then hit assign, and now it'll make that green right there. So there is my sushi, and now it is time to make the plate. But before we do that, let's make an array modifier. So if we look at this, we have 6 pieces. So what we can do is a little bit of a cheat here. I can take this piece of sushi, and I'm going to tab out into object mode. There it is. With it selected, the modifier is this wrench right here. So when you hold your cursor over it, you'll see modifier. I'll click it, and I'll open up this, and here are all the modifiers. We're going to find array. And what array does is an array is just like, think of it as tiling something, like the tiles you can see in the background there. We're going to make this into an array. And so looking at the X, Y, and Z axis over on this side, I can add, I'm going to go to 1.2 on the X axis. And then I'm going to add another one by clicking here and changing that to 3. So each one of these is separated by 1.2. And voila, there we go. But if you look at here, we have 6. So we added an array going this way. Now let's add another array going the other direction. So how do we do that? We go here and we add another array. So go click that, add modifier rather, and then click add array. So I added it in a line. We don't want to do that. And so what we can do is subtract it so they're back on top of each other, or you could just type that into 0, hit enter, and now they're on top of each other. Should work. And what we will then do is move them in that direction. I guess we do want that to be. I'll undo this until get it right. Okay, there's our 3. Perfect. Now let's modify that again. So we'll go back to here, add the array. And that's why, I apologize. This is the old array. Here's the new array. So I can put that at 0, hit enter. Now the 3 are on top of each other, and then I can move them one direction. And I'll go to 1.2. You could also go to negative 1.2, and they'll go on the other side. It doesn't matter. So 1.2 or negative 1.2. Let's just go 1.2. All right, so my bad. So don't get the two arrays confused. This one was the other one to make those 6 there. All right, so we now have our 6 pieces of sushi. We're going to make the plate here. In order to make the plate, let's go to our cube. Remember we started with a cube? So here is the actual piece of sushi. Here are the materials that we put onto that. And then here are the modifiers, and it says we have 2 array modifiers connected to that. So rather than having it called cube, let's go ahead and call it SHSI sushi. Now we're going to add another mesh, and it's important to do this in object mode. Object mode. So when we add another mesh, and I'll hit Shift A, don't just watch my screen, don't do this yet. Shift A goes to add mesh, and I can add another cube. And I'll move this over here by hitting G. So there's the new cube. When we do this in object mode, it makes its own separate cube right here. I'm going to show you what this looks like by going undo. So now the cube is gone. Let's tab into edit mode. And when I go to Shift A to add, I'll add a cube in here. And so the cube is right. Well, here, this illustrates my example perfectly. I added a cube, but it adds it underneath this mesh right here when you do it in edit mode. So I'm going to hit undo. Okay, I think we're good there. Now I'll go to object mode, just hit tab, and here is where we want to add our next cube. So I'll go to Shift A, and I'm actually going to add a plane this time. So the plane is there. In fact, if we hit wireframe right here, you can see there's the plane. So the plane is selected, and you can see it right here. I'm actually going to call it plate. There we go. And I'll take this, and it's selected, so I'll hit S, and I'm going to drag this out about 8 squares in total. And so I can drag it that far, or what you can do is you could just type in 4, and it will do a 4 in each quadrant. So I'll just type in 4 and hit enter. And what I mean by that is here's 1 square, 2 squares, 3 squares, 4 squares. So there's 4 right here, and there's 4 right here. So together we have 8 squares long. And each one of these squares is a meter as it exists in real life. Or close to, actually. Not quite a meter, 2 meters. All right, so this is our plate. I'm gonna hide the sushi for a moment by hitting this eyeball on the sushi. And I'm gonna hit 1 on my numpad to get to the front view. And the next thing I'm gonna do is hit tab into edit mode. Because I'm going to extrude the plane upwards. I'll give you a side profile so you can kind of see this. I'll tap E, and it will extrude this up. And that's how we're going to make our plate thick. So I'll undo that. I'll hit tab and hit extrude, and we'll go up about, let's go up about that thick, I guess. And you can always change it, because what we're going to end up doing is making a little divot on the inside right here. So now I'll come up to here, and with our top face selected, so we have the face selected here, I'm going to hit I, and we've just accessed what's called inset. So we're going to take the line and inset the shape in. And so now you can kind of start to see the shape of the plate. I'm going to go about that far. And once we get that far, I'm now going to take this middle part and extrude it down. So now I'll hit E and then go down about that far. So that's why we wanted to add some thickness to the plate. There is one other option that you can do, and you can just keep it there, and that will be an easy way. If you're having a hard time, just do that. If you look at mine, you can see how mine slopes down just a little bit. And so some other options that you could do are, I'll back up, and without extruding that, I'll hit I, inset it in, And then I'll hit G on the numpad and I can move it around. And if I hit Z on the numpad, I can just go straight down to about there. Okay, and you can see how I now have a divot. Let me go to this, maybe this might give you a better idea. You can see how I have some dimensions into the plate right there. And of course, if you wanted the outside to go up more, you could go to your line segment, select the line, actually, there we go. Select the edge there, and if you hold Alt, it'll select it all the way around, or Option, and then we can hit G, and then make sure we're on the Z axis, so we can just go up, and I can make that a little bit taller if you wanted to. But I was just wanted to show you just the exaggeration of what that might look like. I'll right-click to cancel that. I've got enough depth in mind that I'm just going to move forward with that plate. All right, so we can now, let's add a modifier or color to this plate. I'm going to tab into edit mode. Plate is selected, and let's go to the material preview. Okay, I feel like I could make it divot a little bit more. Oh well. Let's add a modifier to this. Or I apologize, let's add a material to this. So I just added that material, and you can see here are all of the ones that we have created. None of these are going to work for this. So in fact, I'm probably actually just going to go back into edit object mode. I'm going to hit A to select this whole plate, and then I'm going to add a new material here, and then hit new there. Base color, I'm going to make my plate dark, not quite black, but really, really dark, maybe right around there. Click off so you can see it. And then I'm going to take my plate and I'm going to make it a little bit shiny. So this roughness underneath, I'm still underneath this material. In fact, we can give this material a name. We can call it plate if you want to, or black, or whatever the case. And I'm going to make it a little bit shiny. So in order for us to do that is we need to take away some of the roughness, and that's what it looks like 100% shiny. It's reflecting off of an image, and I'll explain that later. But I want it to be right around maybe there. It has a little bit of reflection on that, and it will reflect the sushi on it as well. So there is our plate. I'll tab into edit mode, and voila, pretty shiny glass plate. Let's add our sushi back. Looks like our sushi is a bit too big and we need to position it. So we know the rules on how to scale it. I'll hit S and I'll scale it down until I think it's going to be fit. And then I'm going to hit G and X, which is the red one, and I'm going to slide it to about there. I can hit 7 on the numpad to get an aerial view to fit it perfectly. So I'll hit G and X and I'll slide it right around there. And then I'm going to hit 1. And 1 gives me the side or the front view. It looks like we need to raise the sushi up a little bit. So I will, and what you can do is use the wire mesh and you can actually see through everything. And this is the X-ray. So I can see through everything here. So I will raise the sushi up by hitting G and then Z, raise it up, and then so it's not floating, I put it right there. And I'll bring this back. So now my sushi is resting right on top of that. And then when we go to the render mode, you can see that we're getting some shadows on there from the sushi. You could even make it a little bit more reflective so it reflects some of the color from the sushi. I'm going to go back to this material mode here so it works a little bit faster. And if you need to scale your sushi down, like my sushi looks a little bit too big, so I think I am going to scale it down. So I'll hit S. There we go. And I'll hit 7 to make some other adjustments with the moving. And I'll position it right there. So that is our sushi with our plate. Now we need to make some chopsticks. Chopsticks, this is what they look like. Actually, I'll do chopsticks in the next video.